My name is Julia. I'm 28 and I'm a fashion designer in New York. I finally saved enough for my dream dress for my promotion party. Now my parents are demanding I lend it to my sister Amanda, even though she's ruined my things countless times before. The dress represents years of hard work and sacrifice, but somehow I'm still the selfish one for saying no. Family expectations are crushing me, and I'm wondering if I'm wrong for protecting what's mine. If you're watching this from a place where family dynamics are complicated, hit that like button and subscribe if you've ever had to stand up for yourself against unfair treatment. Amanda and I have always had a complicated relationship. At 23, my younger sister has been the apple of my parents' eyes since she was born. I still remember the day they brought her home from the hospital, all wrapped up in a pink blanket, with my father beaming proudly as if he'd just won the lottery. I was only 5 then, excited to have a little sister to play with. Little did I know how that relationship would evolve over the years. Growing up, there was always a stark difference in how we were treated. I was expected to be responsible, to set a good example, to understand when things didn't go my way. Amanda, on the other hand, seemed to live by a different set of rules. Her mistakes were just part of growing up. Her demands were just her expressing herself, and her disregard for others' belongings was simply being a kid. The first major incident happened when I was 16 and Amanda was 11. I had been looking forward to my junior prom for months. After babysitting for the neighbors every weekend for almost a year, I had finally saved enough to buy a beautiful sky blue gown. It was the first really nice dress I'd ever owned. I remember standing in front of the mirror the night I brought it home, imagining how it would look with my hair up, maybe with some small rhinestone clips that my grandmother had given me. 3 days before the prom, I came home from school to find Amanda in my room. She had decided to give herself a manicure using my new dress as a surface to rest her hands on. There were bright red nail polish stains all over the front of the dress, stark against the pale blue fabric. "What happened?" I had asked, trying to keep my voice steady even as tears welled up in my eyes. Amanda had simply shrugged. "It was an accident. Besides, you have other dresses." I didn't actually. Not for a formal dance. When I showed my parents what had happened, I expected them to be upset with Amanda to make her understand the gravity of what she'd done. Instead, my mother sighed and said, "Julia, it's not the end of the world. We can try to get the stains out. You know your sister didn't mean it." My father added, "You're older, you should be setting a better example. Being upset isn't going to fix anything." I ended up wearing an old dress of my cousin's to the prom. It was too big and not at all my style, but it was the only option I had. Meanwhile, Amanda faced no consequences. No apology was required. No allowance was docked to help replace what she had ruined. The second incident occurred when I was 21. I had just started my first internship at a fashion company in Manhattan. I was still in college, balancing classes, the internship, and a part-time job at a coffee shop to make ends meet. After 6 months of carefully saving, I bought myself a small designer handbag. It wasn't the fanciest model, but it was my first real designer purchase, something I had dreamed about since deciding to go into fashion. One weekend, I came home to visit my parents. Amanda, then 16, saw the bag and immediately wanted to borrow it for a party. "Please, Julia. Everyone will think it's so cool. I promise I'll be careful with it," she had pleaded, using the same puppy dog eyes that always worked on our parents. Against my better judgment, I agreed. After all, she was older now, more responsible. Maybe things would be different. When Amanda returned the bag 2 days later, there was a large tear along the seam, and what looked like pen ink stained the interior lining. When I confronted her, she became defensive. "It was already starting to come apart at the seam," she lied, "and that ink was probably there before. You just didn't notice it." Once again, I went to my parents expecting support. Instead, my mother said, "Julia, you know how these things happen." At least she brought it back. Some siblings wouldn't even do that. My father was more direct. "If you didn't want it damaged, you shouldn't have let her borrow it. You know how teenagers are." The third major incident was just 3 years ago when I was 25. I had been working at my current company for a while by then and had received a bonus. I used part of it to buy a beautiful designer jacket that I could wear to important meetings. It was professional but fashionable, perfect for making an impression in the design world. Amanda asked to borrow it for a job interview. By this point, I was hesitant, but both she and my parents assured me that she understood the importance of the jacket and would take excellent care of it. I swear, Julia, I'm not a kid anymore. I know how much this means to you, Amanda had said earnestly. I relented. When the jacket came back, one of the sleeves was missing. Not ripped, not damaged, but completely missing. Apparently, Amanda had caught it on something at a party she'd gone to after her interview, and rather than telling me immediately, she tried to have it fixed at a local tailor. The tailor had made things worse, and eventually the sleeve had been removed entirely. I thought I could get it fixed before you noticed, Amanda explained, not even bothering to look apologetic. But the tailor said the fabric was too specialized. It's not that big a deal, though, right? You could turn it into a vest or something. This time, even my parents couldn't completely excuse her behavior. But their response was still far from what I hoped for. Amanda, that wasn't very responsible, my mother had said in the mildest possible tone. Julia will help you pay for a repair. That help never materialized. The jacket was too damaged to fix, and no offer was made to replace it. Instead, a week later, my parents bought Amanda a new outfit for another interview, reasoning that she needs to make a good impression to get started in her career. After each incident, Amanda would promise that next time will be different. She would look contrite for a day or two, maybe even offer a half-hearted apology if pressed. But nothing ever changed. And with each broken promise, the rift between us grew wider. Despite everything, I've tried to maintain a relationship with my sister. She's family after all. I send her birthday and Christmas gifts. I call to check in on her. I try to be interested in her life and career. But there's always this undercurrent of tension, this knowledge that I can't fully trust her, that my belongings aren't safe around her, and that if anything does go wrong, I'll be the one expected to be mature about it. It's exhausting to love someone who has repeatedly shown so little respect for you. It's draining to try and maintain a relationship that feels so one-sided. But she's my sister, and cutting her off completely has never seemed like an option my family would accept or understand. My career in fashion didn't happen overnight. After graduating with a degree in fashion design, I started as an intern at Maxwell Designs, one of the mid-size but well-respected houses in New York. The first 2 years were brutal. I worked 14-hour days fetching coffee, organizing fabric swatches, running errands across the city in all weather. And occasionally, if I was lucky, being allowed to assist with the most basic aspects of actual design work. I lived in a tiny apartment with 2 roommates, ate ramen more often than I care to admit, and put every spare penny toward building a professional wardrobe piece by piece. In the fashion industry, appearance matters. You can't show up to work in just anything, especially not when you're surrounded by people who notice every stitch and seam. After 2 years as an intern, I was hired as a junior assistant designer. The pay was still modest, but at least I was on the ladder. I could finally afford to move to a slightly better apartment, though I still needed a roommate to make rent. For 3 more years, I worked my way up, taking on additional projects, staying late, coming in on weekends when needed, all to prove my worth. Finally, after 5 years with the company, my hard work paid off. My boss called me into her office on a Tuesday morning in March. I remember being nervous, wondering if I had made a mistake on the spring collection sketches I'd submitted the previous week. "Julia," she said, smiling broadly, "I'm pleased to tell you that the creative director has approved your promotion to senior designer. Your work on the spring collection was exceptional, and we believe you're ready for more responsibility." I could hardly believe it. Senior designer. It was the title I'd been working toward since I first set foot in the company. It came with a substantial raise, more creative control, and most importantly, industry recognition. Maxwell Designs was known for cultivating talent, and senior designers often went on to launch their own lines or move to even more prestigious houses. "We'll be hosting a welcome party for you next month," my boss continued. "It's tradition for new senior designers. Several important industry figures will be there, including some fashion editors and potential buyers. It's a chance to celebrate your achievement and make some valuable connections." That's when I knew I needed something special to wear. This wasn't just any party. It was my official introduction to the upper echelons of the fashion world. What I wore would be noticed, commented on, remembered. It needed to make a statement about who I was as a designer and a professional. I spent weeks searching for the perfect dress. I visited boutiques across the city, browsed online, even considered making something myself, though I knew I wouldn't have time to create something of the quality I needed. Then I found it in a small boutique in Soho that specialized in up-and-coming designers. The dress was a deep emerald green with delicate sequins that caught the light without being ostentatious. The cut was modern and elegant with a slightly architectural shoulder that showed I understood current trends, while the silhouette was timeless enough to indicate I wasn't a slave to passing fads. It was exactly the right balance of fashion forward and classic that I wanted to project. It was also more expensive than any single item I'd ever purchased for myself. Even with my upcoming raise, it would mean saving carefully for 3 months. I would need to cut back on everything non-essential, eat at home, instead of going out with friends, take the subway instead of cabs, and postpone buying some supplies I'd been eyeing for my personal design projects. But when I tried it on in the store looking at myself in the mirror, I knew it was worth it. This wasn't just a dress. It was a symbol of everything I'd worked for, a tangible representation of the career I was building, step by painstaking step. I put down a deposit that day and started saving. For 3 months, I monitored every expense took on a few freelance design jobs on the side, and even sold some clothes I no longer wore to consignment shops. Finally, 2 weeks before the party, I made the final payment and brought the dress home. Hanging it carefully in my closet, I felt a surge of pride. This was what adult success looked like: making decisions about what mattered to you, working hard, and achieving your goals through persistence and sacrifice. The dress wasn't just beautiful, it was earned. As the party approached, I couldn't help feeling both nervous and excited. This was a significant moment in my career. The guest list included not just my colleagues, but buyers from major department stores, editors from fashion magazines, and even a few celebrities who were loyal customers of the brand. The connections I could make at this event might shape the next phase of my career. I carefully planned everything. I scheduled a hair appointment, decided on subtle but impactful jewelry, chose shoes that were both attractive and comfortable enough to wear while mingling for hours. I researched the guests so I would know who to approach and what to discuss with them. This was more than a celebration. It was a professional opportunity. Each time I looked at the dress hanging in my closet, I felt a thrill of anticipation. It represented not just the promotion itself, but all the possibilities that were opening up before me. After years of hard work, I was finally stepping into the role I had dreamed of, and I would do it wearing a dress that made me feel confident and powerful. The night before the welcome party, I tried on the complete outfit one last time. Standing in front of the mirror in my apartment, I hardly recognized myself. Gone was the nervous intern who had once spilled coffee on a stack of sketches. In her place stood a poised professional woman ready to take her place in the industry she loved. The dress was perfect. Everything was perfect. I was ready. The trouble started 3 days before my welcome party. Amanda dropped by my apartment unannounced, something she occasionally did when she was in the city. Usually I didn't mind, though a text ahead of time would have been nice. I was in the neighborhood for a job interview, she explained as I let her in. Thought I'd see if you wanted to grab lunch. I was in the middle of finalizing some designs, but I welcomed the break. Despite our complicated history, I still enjoyed spending time with my sister when things were going well between us. We ordered takeout, and while waiting for it to arrive, Amanda wandered around my apartment as she often did. "What's this?" she asked, spotting the garment bag hanging on the outside of my closet door. Before I could answer, she unzipped it and gasped, "Julia, this dress is gorgeous." I felt a surge of pride as I explained about my promotion and the upcoming welcome party. Amanda seemed genuinely happy for me, congratulating me with a warm hug that reminded me of the good parts of our relationship. "Can I see how it looks on?" she asked, her eyes sparkling with excitement. I hesitated but then agreed. After all, sharing this moment with my sister felt nice. I carefully put on the dress, and Amanda's reaction was everything I could have hoped for. She circled me, admiring the cut and color, complimenting how perfect it was for the occasion. Then her expression changed subtly. "You know," she said slowly, "I have a big date this weekend with this guy I really like. He's taking me to this super fancy restaurant and I have absolutely nothing to wear. She ran her hand along the sleeve of my dress. This would be perfect. I felt my stomach drop. Amanda, I can't. This is for my welcome party. It's really important. Your party isn't until next week, right? I'd have it back to you in plenty of time. She pressed her voice, taking on that familiar wheedling tone. I'm sorry, but no, I said firmly. This dress was really expensive and I need it for my event. It's a big deal in my career. Amanda's face fell, then hardened. Of course! Heaven forbid you ever share anything with me. It's just a dress, Julia. You always act like your stuff is more important than my needs. That's not fair, I protested. This isn't about sharing. This is about boundaries, after what happened with my jacket last time. Oh my God, are you still bringing that up? It was an accident. Amanda interrupted, her voice rising. You know what? Forget it. Keep your precious dress. I'll just wear something old and probably get dumped because of it. Before I could respond, she had grabbed her purse and stormed out of my apartment, slamming the door behind her. I stood there in my beautiful dress, feeling the familiar mixture of guilt and frustration that interactions with my sister often left me with. Later that evening, my phone rang. It was my mother. Julia, honey, she began, her voice carrying that special tone that always preceded a guilt trip. Amanda told me about what happened today. I took a deep breath. Mom, I bought this dress specifically for my welcome party. It's really important for my career. I understand that, sweetie, but would it really be so terrible to let your sister borrow it for one night? She really likes this boy, and you know how sensitive she is about her appearance. Mom, every time Amanda borrows something of mine, it comes back damaged or ruined. I reminded her. That's not fair, Julia. She was younger then. She's much more responsible now. My mother countered conveniently, forgetting that the jacket incident had occurred when Amanda was 20, hardly a child. I'm sorry, but I can't risk it. This dress cost 3 months of savings. There was a pause. Then my mother's voice became cooler. I think you're being very selfish right now. Family should come first. Your sister needs this, and you're in a position to help her. I raised you to be more generous than this. The conversation continued in this vein for another 15 minutes. By the time we hung up, I felt drained and doubted myself. Was I being selfish? Should family always come before personal boundaries? Before I could fully process these thoughts, my phone rang again. This time it was my father. Julia, he began without preamble, his voice carrying that authoritative tone he used when he expected to be obeyed. Your mother tells me you're refusing to help your sister. Dad, it's not about refusing to help, it's about you putting your own desires above your sister's needs. He interrupted. I'm very disappointed in you, Julia. This isn't how we raised you. Dad, every time Amanda borrows something, she damages it. I tried again. That's in the past. People change. Are you really going to hold grudges against your own sister? The conversation deteriorated from there. My father brought up how I had always been the difficult one, how Amanda looked up to me, and I was letting her down, how families should support each other. By the time he hung up, there was an implied threat hanging in the air. If I couldn't be a supportive family member, perhaps I shouldn't expect support from the family either. Over the next day, the text messages poured in. From my mother, gentle but persistent reminders of how much Amanda admired me, how sharing was caring, how she was sure I would do the right thing. From my father, shorter messages expressing his continued disappointment. From Amanda herself, alternating between angry accusations and tearful pleas. The pressure was overwhelming. It wasn't just about the dress anymore. It was about my place in the family, about years of established patterns, where my needs were secondary, where I was expected to give in, to be the bigger person to sacrifice. Each message made me feel more cornered, more like I was fighting not just for a dress, but for the right to have boundaries at all. Finally, after a particularly emotional voicemail from my mother, describing how Amanda had cried herself to sleep, I agreed to a family meeting to discuss the situation, not because I intended to change my mind, but because I hoped that face-to-face, I might be able to make them understand my perspective in a way that phone calls and text messages had failed to convey. It was a decision I would soon come to both regret and be grateful for, though not in ways I could have anticipated. The family meeting was set for Sunday afternoon, 4 days before my welcome party. I drove to my parents' suburban home with a knot of dread in my stomach. As I pulled into the familiar driveway, I took a moment to compose myself, rehearsing the calm, rational arguments I planned to make. Stepping into my childhood home usually brought a sense of comfort, but not that day. The living room was arranged like a tribunal. My parents sat side by side on the sofa with Amanda in the armchair beside them. A single chair faced them across the coffee table, clearly meant for me. The physical arrangement perfectly symbolized how I felt outnumbered on trial, separated. "Julia, thank you for coming." My mother began, her voice gentle, but with an undercurrent of tension. "We thought it would be good to talk this through as a family." I nodded, sitting down in the designated chair. The family photos on the wall behind my parents seemed to watch me accusingly. There I was at 10 with a gap-toothed smile, my arm protectively around 5-year-old Amanda. There we were at Amanda's high school graduation, all beaming proudly. Family history surrounded us silently, reinforcing the bonds I was apparently threatening. "We understand that this dress is important to you," my mother continued, "but family is important too. Don't you think?" It was a masterful opening move, positioning any defense of my position as a rejection of family values. "Of course family is important," I agreed. "But so are boundaries and respect for each other's belongings." My father leaned forward, his expression serious. "Julia, part of being a family is making sacrifices for each other. As the older sister, you have certain responsibilities toward Amanda." "I've made many sacrifices over the years," I pointed out, struggling to keep my voice level. "But this dress represents something significant in my career, a milestone I've worked years to achieve." "It's just a party," Amanda interjected, her voice small and hurt. "My date is really important too. This guy could be someone special, and I want to make a good impression. I don't have anything nice enough, and I can't afford to buy something like your dress." "I understand that, but," I began. "If you understood, you would help your sister," my father cut in. "This isn't like you, Julia. You've always been generous. Why are you being so difficult about this?" My mother reached over to pat Amanda's hand consolingly. "Your sister has always looked up to you. She admires your style, your success. Is it so wrong that she wants to borrow something of yours for one special night?" I took a deep breath. It's not wrong to want to borrow something. What's wrong is the expectation that I should say yes regardless of my own needs or concerns. "What concerns?" my father scoffed. "It's a dress. She'll wear it for one evening and return it." Like she returned my jacket or my handbag or my prom dress. The words came out sharper than I intended. Amanda's eyes filled with tears. "That's not fair. Those were accidents." "Were they? Because they seem to form a pattern? A pattern where my things get ruined and somehow it's never really your fault. And I'm expected to just accept it because family." My mother's expression hardened slightly. "Julia, I think you're being very unfair right now. Your sister has grown up a lot." "Has she?" "Because this whole situation feels very familiar. Amanda wants something of mine. I say no. And instead of respecting that, she runs to you too, and suddenly I'm being ganged up on and made to feel like a terrible person for having boundaries." "If you really loved your family, boundaries wouldn't be such an issue," my father said, his voice taking on that dismissive tone that had always made me feel small. Something inside me snapped at those words. All the years of being the reasonable one, the responsible one, the one who had to understand and forgive and give in while watching Amanda escape consequences for her actions time and again. "If you really loved me, you would respect my boundaries," I countered, my voice rising despite my best intentions. "If you really loved me equally to Amanda, you would have held her accountable all the time she damaged my things. If you really saw us as equals, we wouldn't be having this conversation at all." The room fell silent. My outburst had clearly shocked them. I had shocked myself. I had never spoken to my parents this way before, had never so directly challenged the family dynamic. "What exactly are you implying?" my mother asked, her voice dangerously quiet. And then, like a dam breaking everything I had held back for years, came flooding out. "I'm implying that for as long as I can remember, there have been two sets of rules in this family. One for Amanda and one for me, I said, my voice surprisingly steady despite the emotion surging through me. My father started to interrupt, but I held up my hand. For once, I wasn't going to be silenced or talked over. Let me finish. When I was 16 and Amanda ruined my prom dress with nail polish, she faced no consequences. None. I had saved for months for that dress. I babysat every weekend, giving up time with friends to afford it. And when I came to you both upset, you told me I was overreacting and that I should be more understanding because she was younger. I turned to look directly at Amanda, whose expression was a mixture of shock and defensive anger. When I was 21, and you borrowed my first designer handbag, the one I bought with my coffee shop earnings while balancing college, and an internship, you returned it torn and ink-stained. You lied to my face, claiming it was already damaged. And again, our parents sided with you. My mother tried to interject. That's not exactly how... It is exactly how it happened. I cut her off. And then there was my designer jacket 3 years ago. You borrowed it for an interview, promised to take care of it, and brought it back missing an entire sleeve. A sleeve Amanda. And somehow that was portrayed as a simple accident that I should graciously forgive. These weren't small things to me. That prom dress represented months of work. That handbag was my first professional purchase, something I was proud of. The jacket was bought with my first bonus at work. Each time I came to you both for support, and each time I was told that I was being unreasonable, that family means forgiving, that I needed to be the bigger person. I could feel tears threatening, but forced them back. I wasn't going to cry, not now. Do you have any idea what that feels like? To have your belongings repeatedly disrespected, your feelings dismissed, and then to be made out as the villain when you try to protect yourself from it happening again. The silence in the room was deafening. My father's face had gone red, my mother looked pale, and Amanda was staring at her lap. It's not just about the things themselves, I continued, my voice softening slightly. It's about what they represent. It's about the fact that my feelings and boundaries have never seemed to matter as much as Amanda's wants. It's about years of being told in ways both subtle and overt that her happiness is more important than mine. I took a deep breath. I've spent my entire adult life trying to be independent, to make my own way, to not ask for help. Do you know why? Because I learned early on that I couldn't count on the support I saw Amanda receiving. When she needed money for college, you took out a second mortgage. When I needed money, I got a lecture on financial responsibility and was told to apply for scholarships. My mother's eyes widened. That's not fair, Julia. We've always supported both of you. Differently, I corrected. You've supported us differently. Amanda got designer clothes for her first job interviews. I got hand-me-downs and thrift store finds. Amanda got a car for her 18th birthday. I got luggage, with the implication being that I needed to be prepared to make it on my own. We were in a better financial position when Amanda was growing up, my father argued. It's not just about money, I countered. It's about time, attention, emotional support. It's about how quick you are to defend her, and how quick you are to expect me to accommodate her, like right now. This dress represents a major milestone in my career, something I've worked incredibly hard for. But the moment Amanda wants it, I'm expected to hand it over, despite all evidence suggesting it will come back damaged if it comes back at all. Amanda finally looked up, tears streaming down her face. I didn't know you felt this way. I didn't realize. How could you not realize? I asked, not unkindly. Every time you borrowed something of mine, you brought it back damaged. Every time I got upset, you ran to Mom and Dad, who then pressured me into forgetting about it. It's been the same pattern our entire lives. We never meant to make you feel less important, my mother said softly, looking genuinely troubled. We just thought, as the older sister, you were more capable, more independent. We thought you could handle more. I could handle more, I agreed, but that doesn't mean I should have had to. That doesn't mean my things deserve less respect or my feelings deserve less consideration. My father was quieter now, the anger in his face replaced by something that looked almost like shame. Julia, if what you're saying is true, it is true. I insisted. Every word. Then we have some things to think about, he finished. But surely you can see how, from our perspective, refusing to help your sister with something as simple as borrowing a dress seems petty. That's just it. It's not simple. It's not just a dress. It's about whether I can trust that my boundaries will be respected. It's about whether the things that matter to me will be treated with care. And based on our history, I have every reason to believe they won't be. I stood up suddenly exhausted by the emotional weight of the conversation. I think I need some space from all of you for a while. I need to focus on my welcome party and what it represents for my career. And I need to know that I can protect the things that matter to me without being made to feel selfish or unkind for doing so. The shock on their faces was evident. In our family, conflicts were usually resolved or at least papered over in a single sitting. The idea of me stepping back creating distance was unprecedented. "Julia, you can't mean that," my mother said, alarm in her voice. "We're family." "Yes, we are," I agreed, "and I love you all. But right now I need to love myself too. And that means establishing some boundaries that have been missing for far too long." I walked to the door, pausing to look back at them. Amanda was openly crying now. My parents looked stunned, as if they couldn't quite process what was happening. "I'll call when I'm ready to talk again," I promised. "But for now, I need some time." As I walked out to my car, I felt a strange mixture of emotions. There was guilt, of course, that had been programmed into me from an early age when it came to standing up to my family. But there was also relief and a sense of strength I hadn't expected. For perhaps the first time in my life, I had spoken my complete truth to my family, without filtering or softening it to make it more palatable. Whatever happened next, I had finally broken a silence that had been suffocating me for years. And despite the pain of the moment that felt like a victory, the night of my welcome party arrived, and despite the drama with my family, I was determined to enjoy it. This was my moment, the culmination of years of hard work and sacrifice. I wasn't going to let family tension rob me of the joy and pride I deserved to feel. I spent extra time getting ready, making sure every detail was perfect. My hair was swept up in an elegant updo that showcased the architectural neckline of the dress. My makeup was subtle but polished professional, with just a touch of glamour. And the dress, my beautiful emerald dress with its delicate sequins, fit perfectly and made me feel both powerful and beautiful. Looking in the mirror before leaving my apartment, I allowed myself a moment of pure appreciation. This was who I had worked to become, a successful professional woman on the rise in her career, someone who had earned her place through talent and perseverance. Whatever else was happening in my life, I could be proud of that. The party was held at an upscale rooftop venue with panoramic views of the Manhattan skyline. As I stepped out of the elevator, I was greeted by twinkling lights, the soft murmur of conversation, and the subtle notes of a jazz quartet playing in the corner. My boss spotted me immediately and came over, champagne flute in hand. "Julia, there you are. That dress is absolutely stunning," she said, air kissing my cheek. "Come, there are so many people I want you to meet." For the next hour, I was introduced to a whirlwind of industry figures: the fashion director of a major department store, editors from several prestigious magazines, a celebrated photographer known for his editorial work, and even a few minor celebrities who wore our designs. I spoke about my vision for future collections, discussed current trends, and accepted congratulations on my promotion. Throughout it all, I maintained a poised, professional demeanor, even as my phone occasionally buzzed in my clutch with messages from my family that I was deliberately ignoring. Tonight was about my career, my achievement. The family drama could wait. "Julia, I want to introduce you to Richard Klein," my boss said, guiding me toward a distinguished-looking older man in an impeccably tailored suit. "Richard is the creative director at Vogue and a longtime supporter of our brand." My heart skipped a beat. Richard Klein was a legend in the industry, known for spotting and nurturing new talent. A good impression on him could open doors I hadn't even dreamed of knocking on yet. "It's an honor to meet you, Mr. Klein," I said, extending my hand. "The pleasure is mine," he replied, his handshake firm. "Sophia has been singing your praises all evening. That collection you helped design for spring was exceptional. I particularly liked the interplay between structure and fluidity." And we fell into a conversation about design philosophy and influences. Richard was both knowledgeable and generous with his insights, offering perspectives I hadn't considered before. By the time he excused himself to speak with another guest, he had invited me to submit some of my personal designs for consideration in an upcoming feature on emerging talents. "That went well," my boss remarked, appearing at my elbow with a fresh glass of champagne for me. "Richard doesn't give praise lightly. You've made quite an impression." The evening continued in this vein, a series of meaningful connections and conversations that affirmed I was exactly where I belonged, doing exactly what I was meant to do. As the party began to wind down, several colleagues invited me to join them for a late dinner to continue celebrating. "I'd love to," I replied, genuinely pleased by the invitation. These were people I admired professionally and enjoyed personally, the kind of peer group I had aspired to be part of since starting in the industry. As we gathered our things and prepared to leave, I checked my phone for the first time in hours. There were multiple text messages from my family. From my mother: "Julia, please call us. We need to talk about what happened. We love you." From my father: "Your mother is upset. I think you owe us all an apology for how you spoke to us." And surprisingly, a longer message from Amanda: "I never meant to hurt you. I never realized how you felt. I'm so sorry for all the times I damaged your things. I was selfish and didn't think about what they meant to you. I hope your party goes well. You deserve to shine." Amanda's message caught me off guard. It was perhaps the first time she had ever offered a genuine apology without qualifications or excuses. I felt a small twinge of hope that perhaps something had gotten through, that maybe our relationship could evolve into something healthier. I decided not to respond to any of them immediately. Tonight was for celebration, for being present with my colleagues and enjoying this milestone. The family situation was complicated and would require careful thought and energy I simply didn't have at the moment. "Everything okay?" asked one of my colleagues, noticing my momentary distraction. I slipped my phone back into my clutch and smiled. "Yes, everything's fine. Just some family stuff that can wait until tomorrow. Where are we headed for dinner?" As we left the venue, laughing and discussing the highlights of the evening, I felt a strange sense of liberation. For years, family drama had often overshadowed my personal achievements, demanding immediate attention and emotional energy. Tonight, I was choosing differently. I was putting myself first, celebrating my success without apology or distraction. It felt good. It felt right. And whatever came next with my family, I knew I would approach it from a position of greater strength and self-respect than I ever had before. In the days following my welcome party, I maintained my distance from my family. I needed time to process not only the confrontation itself, but also the years of accumulated feelings that had led to it. I threw myself into work, embraced the new responsibilities of my promotion, and spent evenings sketching designs for the submission Richard Klein had invited. A week passed, then another. My mother called daily at first, then every few days, leaving increasingly concerned voicemails. My father's approach was more sporadic and ranged from demanding to conciliatory. Amanda sent occasional text messages that were surprisingly thoughtful, asking how I was doing and expressing what seemed like genuine remorse. Finally, after 3 weeks of limited contact, I felt ready to face them again. I suggested a lunch at a neutral location, a cafe halfway between my apartment and my parents' home. I arrived early, securing a quiet table in the corner, where we could talk privately. My family arrived together, looking somewhat apprehensive. My mother embraced me tightly, as if afraid I might disappear again. My father's hug was briefer but sincere. Amanda hung back slightly, offering a tentative smile. "Thank you for agreeing to meet," my mother began once we were all seated. "We've been so worried about you." "I needed some time," I explained simply. "What happened at our last meeting brought up a lot of feelings I've been suppressing for years." My father cleared his throat. "Julia, we've been talking a lot since then, your mother and I. And with Amanda, too. I think—" He paused, seeming to struggle with his words. "I think there may have been some truth to what you said." It was perhaps the closest thing to an admission of fault I had ever heard from my father, and it left me momentarily speechless. "We never meant to make you feel less valued," my mother added. I don't know. I think we fell into patterns without realizing how they affected you." "And I was absolutely horrible," Amanda interjected. I took advantage of how mom and dad treated us differently. I knew I could get away with things you couldn't, and instead of recognizing how unfair that was, I exploited it. I looked at each of them in turn, feeling a complex mixture of emotions. There was relief that they had heard me, really heard me perhaps for the first time. There was lingering hurt from years of feeling secondary. And there was cautious hope that maybe, just maybe, things could change. I appreciate you all acknowledging that, I said carefully. It means a lot to me. We want to do better, my mother assured me. We want to be a family where everyone feels equally valued and respected. My father nodded in agreement, though I could tell this type of emotional conversation wasn't easy for him. I have some requests then, I said, some boundaries that I need to have respected going forward. They all nodded, waiting. First, I need to be able to say no, without being guilted or pressured. If I don't want to lend something or attend an event or participate in something that needs to be accepted. That's fair, my mother agreed quickly. Second, I need acknowledgement when I've been hurt, even if the hurt wasn't intentional. No more dismissing my feelings or telling me I'm overreacting. My father shifted uncomfortably, but nodded. And specifically regarding borrowing things. I looked directly at Amanda. I need to know that my possessions will be treated with respect. That means if I do lend something, it comes back in the same condition. And if an accident happens, because accidents do happen, it's addressed honestly and with a genuine effort to make it right. Amanda met my gaze steadily. I promise. And I want you to know I've been doing a lot of thinking about how I've acted over the years. It wasn't just about the things I borrowed. It was about not respecting you or your boundaries. I'm truly sorry, Julia. There was a sincerity in her voice that I hadn't heard before, a maturity that seemed new. Perhaps our confrontation had forced her to grow up a little, to see beyond her own immediate desires. Thank you, I said, and found that I genuinely meant it. That means a lot to me. The conversation continued, moving from the serious to the more ordinary. We caught up on work, on family news, on plans for the upcoming holidays. It wasn't perfect. There were still moments of tension, old patterns threatening to reassert themselves, but there was also a new awareness, a conscious effort from all of us to communicate differently. After lunch, as we prepared to part ways, Amanda pulled me aside. Your welcome party. How was it? Did the dress work out well? I smiled, appreciating that she was making an effort to show interest in my life. It was amazing. I met some important industry people, made some great connections. The dress was perfect. I'm glad, she said, and I could tell she meant it. Maybe sometime you could tell me more about your work. I realize I've never really asked much about it before. It was a small olive branch, but a meaningful one. I'd like that, I replied. As I drove home from our lunch, I felt lighter than I had in years. Not because everything was suddenly perfect, it wasn't. And I knew there would be slips and struggles ahead as we all tried to break long-established patterns. But for the first time, I felt truly seen by my family. My feelings had been acknowledged, my boundaries respected. It was a beginning. Over the following months, I did see changes. My parents made more effort to acknowledge my achievements and to check in about my life. Amanda and I began building a more balanced relationship, one based on mutual respect rather than the old dynamic of her taking and me giving. When she asked to borrow something, she accepted my answer without complaint, whether it was yes or no. I also sought support outside my family. I joined a support group for adults navigating complicated family relationships, where I found people who understood exactly what I had experienced. I made new friends who valued me for exactly who I was, not for what I could give them. I focused on building a life that felt fulfilling and authentic. The emerald dress still hangs in my closet. I've worn it a few more times to important industry events, and each time it reminds me not just of my professional achievement, but of the moment I finally stood up for myself and demanded the respect I deserved. Learning to set boundaries wasn't easy. There were moments of guilt, of second-guessing, of wondering if I was being too harsh or demanding. But gradually, I came to understand that healthy boundaries aren't selfish. They're necessary. They protect not just our possessions or our time, but our sense of self-worth and dignity. Sometimes the most loving thing we can do both for ourselves and for others is to say no. Because when we allow others to repeatedly cross our boundaries, we're not just letting them take a dress or a jacket or a handbag. We're letting them take pieces of our self respect, our agency, our voice. I don't regret standing up for myself that day, despite how difficult it was. That moment of courage changed not just how my family treats me, but how I treat myself. And that more than any promotion or designer dress is the achievement I'm most proud of. Have you ever had to stand up to your family to protect your boundaries? Comment below with your experience. And if this story resonated with you, please like, subscribe, and share it with someone who might need to hear that it's okay to protect what matters to them. Thank you for listening to my journey, and remember, setting boundaries isn't selfish, it's self-respect.